Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. For this month's review we will be playing at Carlyon Bay Golf Club, which is in St Austell in Cornwall. Today I'll be playing off the yellow tees, and this is a par 72 that plays a little over 6,000 yards. As normal, we'll be getting into the review firstly, and then we'll be getting to each of the 18 holes and just giving some strategy and some course management tips for each of the 18 holes. For the general feel and facilities, I'm going to give this a score of 4 out of 5. On first impressions, when you pull up and all you can see is the golf course and the impressive view over into the bay. The club has the sort of normal amenities that you would want. Really nice clubhouse, well stocked pro shop. The warm-up facilities are a bit away from the clubhouse, so you will have to sort of potentially drive there. If not, you will have to walk down the sort of 18th and 17th to get there. It also didn't appear particularly available that there was balls for the driving range but the staff were really friendly and welcoming, which is also great as a visitor. For the course layout, I'm going to give this a score of 5 out of 5. The front nine is set up to play more like a cliff top style of golf club, and also features some really stunning views out to St Austell's Bay. The back nine plays a little bit more parkland style, which is again just a really nice to separate each of the 9 holes, and it does require a slightly different challenge. One feature that I've always wanted to play a golf course with is a train line that runs through the course, and again you'll see this quite early on into sort of holes 2, 3 and 4, and again towards the back 9 as well. Each of the holes play slightly differently, and especially like I say the styles between the two halves of the golf course, it doesn't feel repetitive at all. There's some nice sort of like features, some nice trouble, and again the views to this course are absolutely stunning. For the course condition, I'm also going to give this a score of 5 out of 5. The course was in immaculate condition. There was barely a blade of grass out of place. I ended up actually speaking to a couple of the green staffs, and they were working really hard on this, and they were actually doing some work to the greens, which actually did make them a bit slow on the day, but they were still a really good pace. This, like I say, was course difficulty. I'm also going to give this a score of 5 out of 5. I think this course is perfectly pitched in terms of difficulty. There's some hard elements, so some of the elevation changes, some of the lie angles that you'll experience, especially around the front 9. There are some easier elements. Again, there's quite a bit of forgiveness around some of the holes, which is sort of helpful at times. I did find that the par 5s, they probably were reachable in 2 for most of them, especially for the longer hitters. And as you can see on the video, the conditions are absolutely perfect for golf. Bright sunshine, there's barely a breath of wind, and this was probably going to be the sort of main feature to this course, actually be playing and probably the easiest it was going to be. And finally onto the value. I paid £65 for the round, which was a midweek round at sort of the end of September. I was more than happy to pay this price given the standard of the course and the condition it was in. So again, I'm also going to give this a score out of 5, and well worth playing if you get the opportunity. I imagine this is even better in the summer. So this is going to give Carlyon Bay a score of 24 out of 25. Absolutely worth a visit if you're in Cornwall, especially if you are on that sort of south coast. What we're going to do now is just get into each of the 18 holes, just again providing a bit of strategy around them. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, please make any comments, and please like on the video as well. If not, I will speak to you next time. Thanks guys. Hole 1, and a great opening hole with probably one of the best views in the entire course. For your tee shot, most golfers will want to play short of the bunker that you see in a right fairway. This shot will need to be no more than about 210 yards, but it's more likely going to be about 200 yards as the tee box is raised from the fairway. There is a path that cuts across the fairway, and that's at about 260 yards from the tee, so if anything, you're just going to want to be short of that. For your approach to the green, I would recommend just playing for the middle of the green. This is quite a long but thin green. Your best miss here will actually be short or long left. There's 2 bunkers, one short right and one in the middle of the green on the left. Anything too far right will find the out of bounds, so just stay towards that left hand side of the green. This green slopes down towards the front right of this green, and will also have a runoff areas, especially at the back, quite a significant one as well. You can expect some movement, especially if you are putting across or diagonally to this green. Ideally you would leave yourself with an uphill putt here. Hole 2, and a challenging par 4 here. Off the tee, ideally you will just take driver and try and get down the fairway as far as possible. You are playing uphill from the tee, and there is an aiming post in the middle of the fairway. You do have plenty of room either side of that aiming post and towards the fairway. There is out of bounds all the way down the right hand side, but this is going to be quite a big miss to find it. The hole turns slightly to the left after the brow of the hill, so if anything, just aim slightly down the left hand side of the post. For your approach to the green plays slightly lower than the fairway. So I would recommend just playing for the yardage to the front of the green, but aiming to the middle of the green as well. There's 3 bunkers, 2 towards the right and 1 on the left of the green. With out of bounds all the way down the right hand side again, a miss to the left is the safe option. This again is a thin but long green with a slight slope down towards the right hand side of the green as you approach it. You won't find too much movement here unless you are putting from distance. Hole 3, and a good length par 3 that plays entirely uphill from the tee box. I would recommend taking aim at the middle of the green and playing the yardage to the back of the green. Again, 2 well positioned bunkers protecting either side of the front of this green, meaning your best miss is either short or long of this green. The green has a false front and is wider at the back. The green has almost 2 tiers, with the left hand side being slightly higher of the 2. The green generally slopes down towards the front right of the green. Expect plenty of movement from most angles around this green, but ideally you will want to leave yourself an uphill putt, so worth factoring in where the pin is as to the yardage that you'll play on this hole. Hole 4, and a short par 5 here, and certainly one for the longer hitters that is reachable in 2. Off the tee though, I would just take driver and aim to get past the trees that you see in front of you. These are roughly at 200 yards away. There's 2 sets of trees and they do make the fairway seem a little bit narrow. So if you can get past them, then great. If you are going to have to lay up short, then I would favour the right hand side, as there is a slight left turn in the fairway after this point. If you're not going to go for the green in 2, then a sensible layup will be somewhere in the region of about 100 yards. This will help to avoid the trees that are down the right hand side and also get past the fairway bunker. For your approach to the green, there is very little room for error to this green. There's a train line down the left hand side and out of bounds all the way to the left. There's 2 bunkers that sit at the right hand side of the green, so best just to aim for the middle of the green for both aim and distance. This is another thin but long green, and the miss here is actually to the front of the green, so if you are in doubt, just play the yardage to the front of the green. This is a traditional split tier green, with the back portion of the green being the higher of the 2 tiers. This green slopes significantly to the front of the green, so pace control is going to be essential here for minimising the amount of putts. You can only expect some movements if you are having to put across the green here. Hole 5, and a short par 3 with a considerable amount of trouble around this green. Finding the green is absolutely essential here. There's thick bushes and 3 bunkers down the left hand side of this green and 2 bunkers short right. There is very little room for error. I would recommend just playing the yardage to the front of the green, firstly as the tee box is slightly elevated from the green, and this will also be your best miss. If the pin is at the back though, then you can afford to miss long and right, but this will leave quite a tough up and down as there's sort of mounds towards the back of the green. This green is fairly flat from most angles, so I certainly wouldn't expect too much movement from. Hole 6, and a good length par 4 that plays its entire yardage from the tee box. This is because the tee box is slightly lower than the fairway. Off the tee though, you'll be at more advantage the further up the hill that you can get. For most golfers, you will probably need to position yourself somewhere between the 2 fairway bunkers. The one on the left comes at roughly 200 yards and the one on the right is about 240 yards from the tee. Your aim here is actually to the left of the tall tree that you see in the distance. So for your approach to the green, you will also be playing uphill, so you may struggle actually to see the bottom of the pin, and this is just due to the hill. I would recommend just playing the yardage to the middle of the green, and if anything favouring the left hand side of this green as it's out of bounds all the way to the right. This green slopes down towards the front of the green, and with runoff areas all the way to the left, which will leave a tough up and down. Another hole, you will ideally leave an uphill putt, and pace control is going to be essential here, and again only expect some movement if you are having to put across the green. Hole 7 and a fairly short par 4, and off the tee you will need to think about what yardage you want into the green and sort of play backwards from there. Ideally you will position yourself somewhere in sort of the 160 to 260 yards, as there's a bit of a gap in between the trees at this point. You will need to be mindful that the fairway slopes significantly to the left hand side, so if anything just favour the right hand side of the fairway. For your approach to the green though, I would aim towards the right hand side of the green, as this ball will likely be above your feet, especially for the right handed golfer, and aim just to hit the middle of the green. There's 2 bunkers at the front of this green, and missing long is not an option here as it's out of bounds at the back. There's a significant slope at the back of this green, so again just aim either towards the middle of the green or, if in doubt, towards the front of the green. The green itself slopes towards the front right of this green, so you can expect plenty of movement as there's quite a few undulations to this green as well. Hole 8 and a relatively short par 4, but this is a really tough tee shot. The trees are really well positioned and it does leave a very narrow window for you to find the fairway. The tee box plays slightly lower than the fairway too, so ideally you would favour the left hand side of this fairway, so it will require a draw for the right handed golfer. I would recommend just playing short of the trees, to the left of the trees that are down the right hand side. These will come at roughly 210 to 220 yards off the tee. For your approach to the green though, ideally you would just play to the heart of the green. There's 2 bunkers to the right and 1 to the left, again leaving very little room for error. The green slopes generally down towards the front of the green, and this is a long green, so pace control again is going to be absolutely essential for minimising the amount of putts here. Hole 9 and a fairly short par 4, but this also plays downhill from the tee box. This is a blind shot, so you're going to need to be mindful that you won't be able to see the green and you'll have absolutely no reference as to where your ball finishes up. The fairway also slopes really significantly down towards the right hand side, and it is out of bounds beyond that. Off the tee though, I would just take a 200 yard club and aim down the left hand side of the fairway. I don't recommend playing anything longer than about 220 yards here, as this will bring the end of the fairway in, which is really thick gorse bushes. There will be another tough second shot, and likely the ball will below your feet, especially for the right handed golfer. Taking aim at the bush that's down the left hand side to allow for that elevation change, playing the yardage to the middle of the green will give you the best chance of making par. If you have a little bit more space at the front of the green, missing long here really will leave a tough shot up and down, but you do have a bit of gap towards the back there. The green slopes generally down towards the front of this green, with also a front to the entrance, so again just play to the middle of the green. Hole 10, and what a way to open up the back 9. Probably the best view on the entire course, so certainly worth taking the time just to appreciate the view over St Austell Bay here. A relatively short par 5, and it also plays entirely downhill towards the green. A perfect hole just to take driver and to try and get down the fairway as possible. If anything, you may want to favour the left hand side of the fairway to give yourself maximum room for error. For the longer hitters, again this is reachable in 2, but depending on how far you get down the fairway. However, this green has 3 bunkers to the front of this green, and with out of bounds all the way down the right hand side, this will require a really tough second shot if you are going to go for the green in 2. Your safe shot here will be to leave yourself something in the region of about 110 to 120 yards from the middle of the green, and this will leave you short of the channel that runs across the fairway. For your approach to the green, the miss here is actually long and left. There is plenty of space out here and would leave us still a good opportunity to get up and down. So play the yardage to at least the middle of the green. You will likely have a downhill lie to this putt, so it will add yardage on. You're also going to want to get clear of the bunkers and just aim towards that left hand side as well, as the out of bounds is quite close to the right of this green. The green is pretty flat from most angles and also does have a slight slope down towards the green, but you're probably not going to experience too much movement at this green. Hole 11 and another challenging par 3 here, and the difficulty is actually this green is quite thin, so you are going to need to be really accurate off the tee. There are also lots of bunkers protecting the front of this green, so there's 2 down the left and 1 down the right, and the miss to this green is actually short, so if anything just favour the yardage to the front of the green. As I mentioned, it is quite long, so if the pin is at the front, just play the yardage to the front, and if the pin is towards the back, then you probably can get away with playing to the yardage to the middle of the green. From most angles around this green, I wouldn't expect too much movement unless you are putting from distance, and there will be a slight slope down towards the front of this green though. Hole 12, and whilst on the cards this is a short par 4, this plays entirely uphill, so we'll play at least its yardage. Off the tee though, I would just recommend taking driver and getting yourself down the fairway as far as possible. This will play to your advantage when you get for your approach to the green. You will need to be mindful that anything missed right is out of bounds, and it is out of bounds all the way down the right hand side of this hole. For your approach to the green though, I would recommend just playing the yardage to the back of the green, as this will factor in the elevation change. This is a split tier green, with the back portion of the green being the higher of the two tiers. Both tiers generally slope down towards the front of the screen, and there are also 2 bunkers protecting the front of this short, so you can't afford to miss anything short here. Pace control is essential, especially if you are having to put up or down the tiers, and again you can expect some movement, especially if you are having to put across the green. Hole 13, and a good length par 5, and from the tee box you will be playing uphill towards the fairway. You will be advantaged the further down the fairway you can get, so take driver and just aim towards the right of the small clump of trees that you see at the top of the hill. Anything missed left here will actually find another fairway, so this is your safe play if anything. Again, out of bounds all the way down the right hand side, so do favour that left hand side of the fairway. For your second shot though, you will need to think about the yardage that you want into the green and just lay up to that yardage. This isn't a green that most golfers are going to reach into, so ideally just lay up and just aim to split the 2 fairway bunkers down the left hand side, and this will leave you somewhere in the region of about 140 to 100 yards into the green. The green is slightly elevated from the fairway, so I would just recommend playing at least the yardage to the middle of the green, if not towards the back of the green. The green itself has 2 bunkers, so short right, so take aim down the left hand side of this green. This is another long but thin green with the widest part at the back of the green. There is a gentle slope down towards the front, and with the front portion of the green having more of a significant slope. Do expect some movement here, especially from long putts or if you are having to put across the green. Hole 14, and a great risk and reward hole here for this short par 4. It also plays entirely downhill from the tee box, so for the longer hitters this is actually reachable off the tee. This will need to be a really accurate shot, and this is just due to the amount of bunkers that protects the green. For the shorter hitters, you will need to think about the yardage that you want into the green again and just lay up to there. I would recommend just laying up to somewhere around 100 yards, as this will help to clear the narrowest part of the fairway and give you the widest part of the rough as well. As I mentioned earlier, there are 5 bunkers protecting the front of this green, so your approach shot, I would just recommend playing at least the yardage to the middle of the green, as this will clear those bunkers and also factor in that elevation change to the green. If the pin is at the front, then you can afford just to lay up short of the green and try and get up and down from there. This green slopes quite significantly from back to front. Again, another hole where pace control is going to be absolutely essential, and do expect plenty of movement if you are having to put across this green at all. Hole 15, and a challenging par 5 here, and whilst this isn't the longest on the cards, it probably isn't going to be one that you're going to be able to reach into. The best option here would be just to lay up short of the trees that line either side of the fairway, and this will need to be around 200 yards off the tee. You are going to want to favour the left hand side of the hole, as this does dogleg to the right. Anything longer here and you just risk being in the trees and having to sort of play out from there, and anything longer than that you are going to come across the train line. Your second shot will ideally just get you past the trees that are down the right hand side, so a good layup here will be something in the region of about 75 to 100 yards to the middle of the green. For your approach to the green though, this will require an accurate tee shot, as the train line runs quite close to the green down the left hand side, and there are also 2 bunkers down the right hand side. So aim for the middle of the green, and just almost irrespective of where the pin is, and just aim to try and keep yourself down the right hand side if possible. Ideally you will leave yourself with an uphill putt, as there is a bit of movement from left to right as you approach the green. Hole 16, and another short par 4 here, which actually is a really good risk and reward hole again. This will require a very accurate tee shot off the fairway, as this is really narrow and has trees running pretty much either side of the fairway. For most golfers, a shot of either 250 or 200 yards will leave you the gap in between the trees, so will give you a bit more room for error here. For your approach to the green though, this will depend on where the pin is located. If it's at the back of the green, then I would recommend playing the yardage to the back, and if it's at the front or the middle of the green, I would just play the yardage to the front of the green. This green has one bunker to the left and also a clump of trees to the right hand side of this green. This green itself is a split tier green, with the right hand side being the higher of the two sides. It also slopes slightly from back to front as well. This is a tough green to read, especially if you do get the shade like I did on the day, and it will require you to really take a good look at this putts. You can expect plenty of movement, especially if you are having to put down or up the tier, so again, just you will need to factor that in there. Hole 17, and a challenging tee shot for this good length par 4. It's out of bounds all the way down the right hand side of the fairway, and it has thick trees all the way down the left hand side here, so it is going to be essential to get your ball in play off the tee. There are two gaps in the trees, one at about 180 yards and one at about 260 yards, so if you can find either of those yardage, then great. For your approach to the green, this is going to require one very accurate shot. The green is heavily protected by bunkers. There's 3 bunkers protecting the front right of this green, and there are 2 bunkers at the back left. The mist of this green is actually short left, as the green runs diagonally up towards the right as you approach this green. Best play here is just to try and find the heart of the green and hope that anything missed here doesn't find one of the bunkers. The green generally slopes down towards the right of this green. I wouldn't expect too much movement here unless you are having to put from distance. And finally, hole 18, and a par 3 to finish off with here. The tee box is slightly raised from the green, so you probably can afford to take a few yards off this shot. I would recommend just aiming to find the heart of this green, as this is quite a generous green. You will want to avoid the 3 bunkers, and these are down the right hand side, so if anything, just aim slightly down the left hand side of the green. The green itself generally slopes down towards the front of this green. There are quite a few undulations around the sort of either side, so right and left of this green. This is a green where a 3-putt is certainly on the cards if you are having to put from distance, so pace control is going to be essential here for minimising the amount of putts.